Welcome to another lore video. Update 18 dropped and we're going to look at what it's revealed so far. Just before Update 18, in the 2 to 3 weeks leading up to it, people noticed that Spire sites were reactivating again after being re-alerted and becoming controlled systems. Hopefully I can find out more about this because some seem to activate and some don't, and we're still trying to get to the bottom of that. But the big news is that Taranis has been defeated and Leigong is very close to being defeated. And will probably be defeated by the time this video goes out. We'll get to that after the one other bit of news, the only non-war lore story around right now, and that's the earthquakes in Rhea, where Felicia Winters has a personal connection. And it's gone under the radar with the focus on the Titans, but it has raised at least one major question. Felicia Winters not taking up her new office as president yet is understandable given her personal involvement with the situation in Rhea, but not having the actual presidential power transferred yet seems odd. So she's the new democratically elected president, but the T-1000 is still in charge. How does that work? As people have said in the forums, including Mr. Colonia, Ian Doncaster, the Federation has a separate executive and legislature. People can be members of both at the same time, and also has fixed terms of office. Now, delaying some of the ceremony until Winters isn't dealing with this crisis, like a inauguration ceremony or something, fine, that's understandable, but delaying the actual transfer of power from the previous administration is just bizarre. She has a number of senior cabinet members already named. She's got Isolde Rochester as vice president, precisely so that there's a deputy available to take care of this kind of thing. And any disaster response is the responsibility of the whole federal government, not just the president or indeed any one person. When Jasmina Halsey was given a vote of no confidence and Zachary Hudson became the president in her place, the transfer of power was extremely smooth and quick, despite having nowhere near as much preparation for it and being an even more extreme situation. Jasmina had gone missing after Starship 1 vanished, so they didn't even know if she was alive or dead. Felicia Winters is not dead, she's not missing, she's just indisposed at the moment. So this is not normal. If they were delaying the election because of the influx of refugees from the war, and let's say some argument developed about their right to vote or something, then yeah, that would be a good reason for delaying the election, but the election's happened already. If it was the Empire, and let's say there was a contested succession, the Senate would give all the candidates time to prepare and present their cases, and in the meantime, the Chancellor and the Senate could run day-to-day affairs while the next Emperor was being decided on. If it was the Alliance, that's basically a parliamentary system, so the running of things would still be done by the party in power, while they chose a new leader. But the Federation has a far more developed and specific government structure in place to cope with this kind of thing, with more people whose job it is to deputise and delegate. The idea that a natural disaster, even on a world where the party leader has a personal connection, would stop the transfer of power to them is pretty nonsensical. With 20,000 colonised systems in the bubble, there's always going to be some natural disaster or some local crisis happening somewhere. And it shouldn't stop her becoming president, even if she has to spend the first few months of her first term delegating her duties. Is this some kind of last desperate attempt by the T-1000 to hold on to power for a bit longer? Is it going to be a major feature of the power play revamp? Are FDev just putting this on hold until we've at least examined the wreckage of Taranis? Delaying it until the PP revamp would be silly, but perhaps they feel two such important stories at the same time would clash a bit, and maybe that's why, and there's nothing sinister about it, maybe that's just why this appears to defy the relatively straightforward procedures that the federal government normally has for this kind of thing. We'll keep an eye on it. When Update 18 dropped, it gave us this new graphic for the Titans, which you get when you click on the Thargoid War tab on the right hand side of the galaxy map. Each ring represents a Titan heart and has its own war progress value, which is written into the journal. It took a minute for players to realise that the war progress is for the current ring only, and not the whole system. So when the progress in Taranis dropped from 80% to 20% overnight, we wondered momentarily if it was a bug, but it's not. It just means that ring got completed, that heart got destroyed, and the next one was 20% in already. And at the end of a ring heart's completion, you get a message, if you're in the game and there at the time, that a Titan heart has been destroyed. This Galnet article also makes it clear that rescues from the Titans are no longer considered worth it, and they're deciding that most people have been rescued, so the rest being sacrificed is better than letting the Titans carry on. Not very satisfying for us as a rescue squad. I've always said it's easy to talk about sacrifices when you're not the one making any, and when people talk about sacrifices, it's always the sacrifices everyone else has to make, never them. But that aside, this is symbolic to me of the fact that they just want to wrap it up now, and so they're shortcutting the story a bit to get there. Whether this was the plan all along or whether there are bits they've cut to get it over with, we'll never know. Just like we'll never know if it was always the plan to have the end of the war dovetailing into a massive power play revamp. But that's where it's headed from what we currently understand. There have been a few hints along the way about the power play revamp, so that's not exactly out of the blue. And Burr, amongst others, speculated last year that perhaps even the Thargoids could become a power play faction. Although how that would work I have no idea, but one way or another, even if we destroy all the Titans by update 19, which is not likely in the slightest, without some major sea change, I think the consequences of this escalation of hostilities and the particularly nasty weapon we're using against the Titans are yet to play out, and it won't just be over, even if this major part of it will be. To make it easier for everyone to go in and either see the Titans or take part in their destruction, the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer, the Pulse Wave Xeno Scanner and the Caustic Sinks are now available to anyone to buy from the rescue ships, so none of those items need unlocking anymore. You just go and buy them for cash, as many as you want. The point has been made to me by Commander Flying Frog that this could be a double-edged sword, and it's a fair point. It might get newbies in who like the gameplay and start working on it, or it could have the opposite effect, destroying newbies who are unprepared, costing them rebuys and demoralising them. Hopefully that won't happen, and those just getting into these activities do seem to be enjoying them more often than not, but he's right to flag it as a risk. Taranis was done by the Friday afternoon, and the graphic progressed accordingly as each ring was completed, until finally we got the message that detonation was imminent. And FDev actually created a special event for this, which we'll get to after looking at the process of taking down the Titan. The process of taking down a Titan is relatively straightforward. Once you get through to the Titan, you'll see that on the top side of the Titan are the thermal vents, and these are what you will be targeting with your nanite torpedoes. The vents open on a timer, so wait for them to open, go in, hit as many of the vents as you can with your nanite torpedoes to stop the Titan venting heat, so then the Titan overheats and it has to emergency vent. It does this by extending a core from the underside of the Titan, so you want to hit as many vents on the top side as possible to get the core open for as long as possible, then get underneath the Titan fast so that you're there when the core emerges to hit it for maximum damage. The Sirius AX missiles do the most damage the fastest due to their faster fire rate than the regular EAX missiles, but they both work, as do multi-cannons and other AX weapons, so blast the core to do as much damage as you can before it retracts again. The 8 rings on the core represent the 8 hearts of the Titan, and the more damage you do to the core when it's exposed, the more money you make, and the lower the damage resistance of the Titan, the easier it is to do big damage to the core, and even 100% damage to the core, before it retracts for maximum progress and money. When the core retracts, you don't want to hang around. You want to get out of there as fast as possible, because the next thing to happen will be the Titan using its toroid field, and you don't want to be inside that when it goes off. It will throw you around, it'll cause you hull and module damage, so as soon as the core begins to retract, get out to a safe distance in the asteroid belt and wait for the vents on the top side of the Titan to open again, and then rinse and repeat. Rescues can be done, but they're best done in their own instance, not at the same time as people are shooting the Titan, because A, you'll get interrupted by the AX combat that ensues, and B, when they close events and expose the core and attack it, afterwards the Titan will use its toroid field, and you don't want to be caught in that while you're trying to gather pods. It will just damage and delay you. So you're either going in to do pod rescues, or you're going in to cripple the Titan, but not both at once. When the final ring of the core is destroyed, the core itself explodes. And afterwards is the best time to go in and rescue pods, when the last heart is down and you can have uninterrupted runs unless you get unlucky with random encounters. Messages appeared throughout Friday night and Saturday with updates and statements from the Pilots Federation. On Friday evening, FDev announced that they were going to make the final destruction of Taranis a weekend event, and players were invited there to see it happen on Saturday evening at 7 PM UTC. We'll see what happens in a minute, or you can skip to that section now. We went in and we rescued what we could, not expecting it to do anything for war progress, but as a roleplay exercise. And between us, we rescued about 2,000 people over the course of Friday night and Saturday morning. Before Update 18, when we were helping out the Xeno Strike Force a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to Shadow Dracana, who's one of the AX guys, and even he was saying that he imagined, from the way the nanite torpedo has been described, before we even got the weapon, that it seemed like a vicious and painful way to defeat the enemy, and it was clear that he, and many others, felt this was just plain nasty. And all the time we were there, after Taranis was defeated, but before it finally blew up, it was groaning and moaning and clearly in terrible pain, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. All through Friday night and Saturday morning, while we were doing pod rescues, the system chat was full of people with misgivings about the whole thing. The obvious agony of the Titan was extremely upsetting for a lot of people, and once again the sound design is outstanding, really getting across the sheer torment the Titan is being put through. Killing an enemy, that's war. But causing it to die in agony over a period of days and then gathering together to gloat over the corpse felt ghoulish, it felt cowardly, it felt more like committing a war crime than fighting a battle. And there were lots of comments in the system chat along the lines of, this feels all wrong, this is unnecessarily cruel, this is basically torturing an enemy and making them suffer, which doesn't say anything good about us. It would be against the Geneva Convention and pretty much every other convention if we were fighting other humans and did this kind of thing to them, and we'll only have ourselves to blame if the Thargoids come back and do something equally nasty in return. But it was probably Commander Haney who said it best when he said, there's no honour in this fight, and that says it all really. All nuance and subtlety seems to have gone out of the window in order to get the war over and done with, and now it's just a race to the end. Whatever happens, this is far from humanity's finest hour. Ironically, on Saturday there was also a last-minute message that commanders received in their inbox about rescuing people, which was a bit late, and contradicted the Galnet article which considered them expendable. And also, this hints at the rushed nature of the whole thing when you get mixed messages like that. Whether rescues from the Titans that remain does anything for progress we don't know, but we'll probably do some anyway, if we get any time between clearing systems, because that's our roleplay, and there are others as well, like Aegis Reforged, they've been doing Titan rescues. Shout out to Lady Lucida for letting me know about their operation, and Ricardo's Gaming has been doing rescues from the Titans and streaming it, so while the narrative has given up on the abducted, the players haven't. Hopefully that'll be recognised, and if it helps with war progress, so much the better. Titan rescues first worked by clearing counter-strike systems, then it got changed to the outer 10 systems like with Spire sites, and then it got changed back to counter-strike systems again, so at the moment I'm not quite sure what they affect, and maybe they'll help a bit with clearing the surrounding systems, but we'll just have to try testing it all over again and seeing what they're doing now. Anyway, the moment finally came, and we gathered at Taranis at 7 o'clock in the evening, UTC, on Saturday, to watch its end. This is what happened. Despite all the bad feelings about what we're doing, what is good about it is that this event went off without a hitch for everyone. Whether they were in open, solo, or private group, it was seamlessly integrated into their instance. Managing that in real time was a hell of a job and something special to be a part of, regardless of how you feel about the war. If this was a test for such things in future, having timed live events like this has the potential to do some interesting things with the narrative and could really add dynamically to a story, so perhaps these live events can be used, more often, to attract players to the stories underneath all the fighting. But yeah, FDev pulled it off without a hitch, so kudos to them for doing that part of it and making it just seem like a seamless part of what was happening at the time. Flying into the Titan, having that event happen, and then just going back to normal in your ship and seeing the remains of the Titan there. Yeah, that was really, really nicely done, nicely integrated, and I hope they are going to do a lot more live events like this, because I think this one showed just how great they could be. We were told that to get back in and look at the wreckage of Taranis would mean waiting a few weeks. And if you tried just after Taranis went down, your caustic sinks would fill up in a second, and you got pushed away if you got within about 100 kilometres or so. Just like you do with the Proteus wave site in HIP 22460, it won't let you get closer than a certain point. The energy wave that pushes you back still triggered, but could be countered by the neutralizer. A week later, by Thursday last week, the energy wave no longer fired, and this is perhaps symbolic of the last energies of the Titan being spent before we're allowed to go in and examine the wreckage. And this week, we can now get in and see what there is to collect. So let's take a look. Well, as you can see, the Titan is in several pieces, and there's a wreckage of various interceptors around the place as well. There are materials to pick up, and even a few biopods have survived, and you have to wonder if the abductees inside were aware of what happened. Were they awake throughout the experience, and what effect did it have on them if they were? You can pick up all the stuff here, but the instance is pretty large, so be prepared to fly several kilometres between points of interest and things to gather. You'll take constant caustic damage, but at a fairly slow rate. So as long as you have plenty of caustic sinks and keep an eye on your caustic levels as you fly about, you should be able to stay in there for quite some time. It's early days, and so there's undoubtedly more to discover in the wreckage, but already some new materials have been found, including Titan drive components, bone fragments, organ samples, and cyst specimens, along with samples from interceptors and orthraces, caustic samples like the ones you get from the generators, and other materials that you see in Titan space. To get some of these, you will need to take an abrasion blaster, and if you do, there are plenty of samples to be had. Palin will buy them, and so will the rescue ships, and although we don't have a community goal to collect them yet, that could still be on the cards for the coming weeks, especially with Leigong shortly joining Taranis and becoming another wreckage site in a week or two. Scythes and scouts hang around the wreckage. Scythes may seem an odd choice, but as there is the odd biopod floating about, they may be watching to see if anybody takes them. They'll normally leave you alone if you don't go near them, but if you do, the scouts will be automatically aggressive as usual, and the Scythes may or may not attack, possibly depending on whether you have a pod on board, and of course if you attack them. Stick around for as long as you want, or have caustic protection for, and see what you can find. These new materials will probably be asked for at some point to learn more about the biggest Thargoid ships we've ever seen, and could be the way we find out how to take them down faster than we can now. Leigong was the next Titan to have a go at, and when it proved to be much harder than Taranis, despite having only a few more systems around it, pilots switched tactics and started clearing all of the controls around Leigong except for 3. There was little point in attacking the Titan because the damage resistance was high and the payouts were very low. And also, just as with other systems, anything we do to weaken the Titan, whether attacking it directly or taking out the systems around it, the effect isn't realised in-game until the following Thursday, so it was better to wait until then for the Titan's status to be updated. There is one difference, which is that any damage done to the Titan carries over. It doesn't have 33% of that progress taken away, like in Controls and Invasions. And so therefore this week, Leigong's damage resistance dropped to compromised, and since Thursday morning, the hearts have started going down fast, and again, we got messages in our inboxes encouraging us to attack Leigong, and a Galnet article encouraging us to attack Leigong, and so this is clearly what they want us doing. And as I say, I wouldn't be surprised if it was destroyed by the time this video goes out. Oya is expected to be next, and in preparation for this, and because there's no rescues to do at Taranis or Leigong, our rescue operations are in Oya, dealing with as many invasions and alerts as we can, and helping out our friends at the Stellar Nebula Project, who have their home systems there, so that by the time Leigong goes down, Oya will be a bit weaker as well. So that's the state of play right now, and we'll have to see if the abductee plot goes any further, if the Salvation or D2 narrative picks up again, or whatever else may happen. But I do wonder, are the Titans really going to just sit there and let us knock them down like dominoes? The 3 we're targeting so far are weaker by virtue of not having too many systems under their control, but some of the remaining ones still have 100 systems around them. Therefore, after Oya, we're not going to be taking one down every 2 weeks, and perhaps we won't even do that with Oya, because there are some very tough controls there to clear out. The Thargoids now know that we have a weapon that can kill Titans, and from all accounts, Thargoids are telepathic. Although even if they weren't, you'd think they'd have some communications, and it does seem a bit strange that they're just sitting and taking it. Perhaps we might only need to destroy 3 or 4 of them for the rest to retreat. The question then will be, where will they retreat to? Can we follow them there? Can we destroy them once and for all? Or will they dig in again somewhere else? There are still lots of unanswered questions despite the progress we've made on the Titans. My hunch is that we won't have to destroy all of them, because at the current rate of difficulty we couldn't do that anyway, even if we had another year, let alone by update 19. So either there's going to be another development to weaken them, or they'll reduce the work needed to clear their support systems, or something else could happen to make them retreat or become easier to take down. Alternatively, the plan isn't for us to do it all by update 19, but just to break the back of what needs doing maybe, because it's hard to think of the Thargoids and the amazing assets put into the game like the Titans to disappear forever as quickly as they arrived. Thargoids have been the antagonists since 1984, and they're part of Elite as much as the Cobra Mark III. Because Elite, and the story of Elite, isn't just about a game. It's a 40-year-old legacy. Stay safe, and as always, thanks for watching.